it's Cindy from Cindy's Art. Guess what's coming? Techniques, play, fun. I'm going to be running a few different types of videos, and I would like any feedback that you have. Tell me what you're wanting to paint, and I'll see what I can do to help us. So one of the techniques I'm going to cover is salt. What kind of salt? Table salt, Himalayan salt. It's all really good. And I want to show you some of the ways that it will affect your painting. And when do you put it on? How do you put it on? That bottom right there, that was Himalayan salt put on very wet paper. Up here, this is table salt put on when the paper is more dry. What paints does it work with? You know, it's all important. These little tiny white flowers in here actually are salt crystals. A little bit on here. Gave some snowflakes and a tiny bit softly in the background of that one. So I want to show you just some things that I do with salt, but you got to practice. You have to get your own paints out and get your favorite colors out and see how they react with one another. So I want to cover that with you. Another technique I want to cover is Saran Wrap. Yep, food wrap. That's called Saran Wrap, for example, here in the States. And you can use that to create some awesome textures. And you want to do that when your paper and paint is pretty wet. You want to add it on there. This isn't done, but you can see how gorgeous that texture is down here. And you don't paint over top of it, but how do you use it? What do you do? Another fun technique, stencils. I'm going to show you what stencils I use to create this little tiny bookmark. And I used layer upon layers of stencils, and then I used white gel pens, black Sakura micron pens, and some gold to finish it up. And it came out pretty cool, but how it started, it was so different. But how do you take stencils that are used for other things and then begin to use those and incorporate them as a texture into your watercolor painting? We're going to try that out as well. I also want to talk about palettes. When I started off, I bought a Holbein set, 80 colors, and starting off, I wanted all of them in my palette. So sometimes these little skinny lines in here, I had 3 colors in one well. It's not quite what you're supposed to do, but hey, we're supposed to play and supposed to work at it. So I cut it down a little bit, and then eventually I started getting into what I would consider are some of my favorite palette colors. I didn't know how to pick those out, and I decided to watch what I was painting, try some different things, and then also, how do I create little mix cards that help tell me what colors would look nice and vibrant against each other. This is not a done painting, but it sure has got some gorgeous color. Here's practice wet on wet, but I love those colors. So I have to practice. I have to throw that stuff out on the canvas so I can figure out what colors can I use in a painting. And the longer I paint, the less paint tubes I probably will buy. I'll buy what I need, but not too many. But what works good together? I seem to like copper and teal a lot. So I came down to palette ideas for myself, which is wonderful. But then I've shown you that on the channel I want to work with salt techniques and stencils and other things. Well, another thing that I needed to know with my paints was, you know, what would create texture on its own. These paints in here, look at that one, these ones work well. These granulate on their own. Oh, let's take a look at this black one. And I'll show you close-ups real slow in the videos when I do them, and that one too. They granulate, meaning when I mix them just with water, their paint pigment it spreads out and it settles into the paper. And it really has a gorgeous look to it. So I looked up for Holbein every granulating paint that there was. Pulled out my 30-some, I believe, and I worked with water to figure out which ones granulate and create this texture. Okay, so that's not the end of the story. Then I found granulating medium that'll take any of my other colors, and if I mix it with that or I squirt granulating medium on top of my painting, it will create more texture. Oh my gosh, so much fun. So I want to share with you some of those techniques or what I did to test things out. Everything's going to be really simple and pretty quick. I want you to sometimes just get your paint out and have some fun. And I'm different because I don't mind showing you some of my failure paintings and then how I turned them around for success. So we'll cover that as well. Another area that I'm working on is working with Brusho. This is going to be in the creative series, fun things you can do with watercolor on a Saturday. I think Saturday is the perfect day to have all the housework done and take off the entire day and just paint. So I'm going to show you how I used just a little bit of sprinkles of Brusho, turned it around into flowers or different paintings, and it's just fun. It's just another thing to try. It's always good to get your creative juices by trying different techniques. How about wet on wet? I have been working with some watercolor paintings, working with wet on wet, and basically the horizon line and above is pretty wet. I drop in paint and it lets it spread. It is a fun technique to use. I did it in the sky, and I did it in this sky as well. I did a wet on wet. I put some heavy paint in. I might have squirted it with water, but you know, what are those things that you could do? Did you know even wet on wet you can create like a cloudy surface? I like this one. This one might go in my living room. All of my artwork is for sale anyway. But I also, when I'm working with colors, you've seen this on YouTube, I will take a micron pen when I'm done and I'll just go ahead and doodle. It is so relaxing for me. And this one, for example, I'm going to throw it into a card or a little 4x6 frame or do it as a giveaway on my social media. Another technique that I have used successfully is modeling paste. I have some modeling paste that's in here to create texture for this painting, and I was able to paint on top of it. This is watercolor paper. So I'm going to show you that too. Okay, this is a wrap. I so appreciate your time, and look for those series and the creative ones where you get to play with different things. Get out some of your salt, get out your Saran Wrap, get the bubble wrap, you know, that pops. Get out some of that. There's small, there's large. There's all sorts of things that you can do with watercolor. And I'm looking forward to getting into some creative work for this coming spring and get some inspiration from summer coming. Oh my gosh, I'm looking forward to being outside. I hope you are well, and I will see you next time, guys.